Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. Over 13 years strong. We got a great discussion coming your way as we dive into the Jacksonville Jaguars and their offseason. Joining us this week, we have from BigCatCountry.com over at SB Nation. You know, we love our SB Nation sites. Got a lot of great folks at SB Nation that jumps on this podcast, and he's making his debut, folks. We have the one and only Travis Holmes. My friend, thanks so much for jumping on here to dive into some Jags offseason talk.
No, I mean, I thank you for having me. It's not often that I feel nervous coming onto a pod, but it's because
nervous.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're always nervous when it's the first time on a pod. Every pod that I'm on these days, it always feels like I'm a 15th time guest or something along those lines. So, thank you for having me.
You guys you are absolutely welcome. You guys do a great job at Big Cat Country. Honestly, like I mentioned to you before I hit the record button, you know, we love our SB Nation sites here. Follow a lot of SB Nation sites, have a lot of guests from SB Nation. You all do a great job. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on. You know, I've been following your content specifically as it pertains to this Jacksonville Jaguars team. And it's a team that I have always found fascinating, in all honesty. And I've told some other friends this who've jumped on the pod before. I feel like the Jaguars are sometimes my AFC team that I just secretly root for. I remember when they came into being during the 1990s. And it was one of those new things in football, those new teams, the new logo back in the day where you're like, you know what, I'm going to follow this team. I want to kind of root for them. You know, they're not going to overtake my Eagles, but I want to root for the Jaguars. And it's just amazing how last season went for this team. They were 13-4 last year. It's just fascinating to see where this team is heading because they're no longer rebuilding. I mean, they are trying to make a jump from divisional winner to become a legit Super Bowl contender here under a remarkable year with their new head coach, new GM, and Jim Gladstone. And I guess the big question here is, Travis, are they poised to take that next step? So let's start with this offseason here. So how would you grade what Gladstone has done and what the front office has done during this offseason, and why? What would that grade be and why?
So this is a fun conversation, especially on the backdrop of the consensus board conversations that swept through the NFL following the Jaguars draft, following the San Francisco 49ers draft, who got a little bit of that, the brunt of that conversation also.
Yeah.
It's hard to grade these guys because they're following that Rams blueprint where they generally don't have first round picks. They normally like to trade them away.
Yep.
Jaguars are kind of following that same vibe. You're talking about a draft class, which honestly just went off the rails at the end of the second round into the third round. And I'm not just talking about the Jaguars. You can look at the Chicago Bears. You can look at so many, like the Washington Commanders. You can look at so many different teams where it kind of got wild as the end of the second round, early third round. And it's like, all right, so it's not just the Jaguars, but the Jaguars are going to take a brunt of that conversation because they didn't have a first round draft pick.
Right.
So then it becomes, all right, so how do you grade this class without having to play a snap on the field? We don't know what's going to come out of it.
Right. And
you also know that they're generally that organization that's going to kind of go left when the rest of the league is going right in that Rams blueprint.
Yes.
So because of that, I'm automatically just giving them grading on a curve, and I acknowledge that I am.
Okay.
Giving them the C. Basically, this is me being the Vegas actuaries when I say you're basically going to be an over under of an 8.5. I'm basically saying I don't know where this is going to land. I'm basically saying, hey, I believe in the coaching staff, and from that perspective, I think that they're always going to be an A+ organization because Liam Cohen, Heath Fartwell, the special teams coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, you have to believe in those guys to develop whoever they bring into the locker room because they're just that good in that 2025 season.
Yeah.
Changing up how they do things in the middle of the season after the bye week, after having some struggles early on. Like they were great early, struggles at the bye, incredible at the end of the season because they switched up so many things. You, based on that, have to believe in the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But if you believe in the coaching staff, then you kind of have to believe in the general manager because you know the coaches have to have their thumbs on the scale as far as the players and the traits that they're bringing in the door. So it's almost like James Gladstone, Jimmy Stones, as we call him.
Jimmy Stones, I love it. Yeah.
It's almost like he gets, I won't call it a pass, but he gets an early pass while you can't see games played to say
Okay.
if this is going to be a plus or a minus. And you just kind of have to say, hey, man, it's going to be a C just based on us not knowing where this is going to go. And we're going to trust you that you're going to develop whatever it is.
Absolutely. Well, I think every NFL team, and I know every NFL team has a roadmap of where this next season is going to go, a roadmap of where this team may be 2 to 3 years perhaps down the road as well. And there's so much that does go into team building, including free agency. So look, offseason free agency is always a way for NFL teams to really just kind of plug in those holes that really need plugging, even finding depth at times. We see the Philadelphia Eagles do that consistently. Green Bay Packers, another team that does that as well. Some teams overshoot and they pay just massive contracts. We've seen that over the years with the Washington Commanders time and time again. I have loved seeing that because they just take some resources and throw them away. Absolutely love that. Some teams are more conservative too. And the Jaguars, they really did not go crazy in free agency this year. So, I mean, how do you look at players and talent like running back Chris Rodriguez, who's coming in, what he's going to mean for the running game? You have Montaric Brown staying with the team for another 3 years. What are your assessments of the Jags, their free agency acquisitions, and what it really means for the future here?
Well, the Jaguars are in a really they're just in a really interesting situation because they have so much dead cap still left onto their books from the last year of Trent Baalke. They shed up the Tyson Campbell contract when they sent him to Cleveland. They shed the Gabe Davis contract immediately once the new coach got into the locker room. They got off of the Greg Newsome contract after he was traded from Tyson Campbell. So it's still it's an additional or an additional penalty from that Tyson Campbell contract because again, they made that trade basically because Greg Newsome was on the last year of his contract that they knew after the end of the season they can get off that risk. It was still another penalty of that Tyson Campbell contract, basically. So all of that combined, you're over $50 million in dead cap on your cap right now. So the Jaguars were going to be quiet in this free agency cycle simply because they didn't. It's not to say they didn't have the money. You always have. The Saints have taught us. If the Saints have taught us anything, the money always exists when you have actuaries and accountants in the room.
And with the Philadelphia Eagles too, where there's a will, there's a way.
Man, you guys got an owner that pays some real money though. That's different. Like he's willing to pay that money every year, and you can make it happen that way.
Right up front. Yep. Yep.
For the Jaguars, it was a different situation when you really do want to wash the books. You want to clean the books to kind of truly start fresh in 2027. That means you are guaranteed or nearly guaranteed to be pretty quiet as far as this 2026 free agency cycle. So that was a known kind of walking in. The fact that they even did re-sign Montaric Brown, and the fact that they did at least bring in an additional running back in Chris Rodriguez after losing Travis Etienne in free agency. That was still something, even though it wasn't the huge thing that most of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Duval Devout, as we call them on the podcast, would have preferred. It was a known with them playing the comp pick formula. They're trying to get the 3 picks next year in the draft by not messing that up. So your additions are always going to be a little bit minimal, just not to screw with that formula. Right. But overall, it was a great signing to keep Montaric Brown in the room. Because that cornerback room has now gone from a true weakness in 2025. And it was, if you watch the Jaguars games, it was absolutely a weakness, maybe even the defensive weakness, to now truly being a strength. You got Travis Hunter, you got Montaric Brown, you have 3 to 4 safety options that you can play right now with Antonio Johnson, Eric Murray, Caleb Ransall, Jalen Husky. They just drafted. And I'm just like, whoo.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Anthony Campanelli, good luck. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Like I didn't name Jarian Jones and Jordan Lewis 2 top slot options. Your dime defense is going to be incredible. So from that perspective, you made a weakness into a strength by subtraction and just saying, Travis Hunter, you're going to be a full-time cornerback while playing a little bit, probably maybe 50% or something like that at wide receiver snaps. it's a good situation for the Jaguars, despite the fact that they did lose an all-pro talent at linebacker and a Pro Bowl caliber running back as far as Travis Etienne is concerned. So it's the best you could probably hope for.
Yeah. Look, moving over to the NFL draft here, the draft I thought was pretty interesting for the Jags because they didn't have a first round pick, as you had mentioned earlier. You're waiting around for that second round. What are they going to do? But they did have 4 total picks in the top 100. I think there's something to be said for that. They went with their very first pick in the draft, tight end Nate Borkacher. Yeah, Borkacher. I screw up names constantly on here. It's ridiculous. But in the second round, he's their first pick. I thought it was a really interesting pick. They also picked another tight end, and I believe in with their 5th round pick as well.
You got it.
What were your overall assessments of the Jags draft this year, as it really pertains to team building in the future? What are your thoughts here?
Well, I will not pretend that this was not a surprise in some ways, while also not a surprise in others. And when I say some ways that it was a surprise, we had CBS Sports JP Acosta on the podcast the week before the draft, kind of giving our generalized predictions and players that we thought might fit the team and things of that nature. Nate Borkacher was at the top of that list as far as tight ends were concerned. Yeah. We just didn't think he was going to be picked at pick 56. It was more one of those pick 81, 88 range. We're talking a small difference, but it is a difference nevertheless.
Yeah.
So then that happens, and Albert Regis, I actually did predict that the Jaguars were going to select him also.
Oh,
so
nice.
That was one of my feathers in the caps that actually won me the Jaguars media. I forget it was like a draft competition basically.
Nice.
Who can pick the most correct picks for the Jaguars? I got Albert Regis. I got Emmanuel Pregnon.
Oh, nice. Nice job, dude.
So I was like, all right, cool. That was a good thing. But also it was an odd draft, like I said earlier, just because of the chaotic nature of everything starting in that second round, kind of where guys went. The picks were right, but where they went was weird. Yeah. And it made it so that if you were to tell me that the Jacksonville Jaguars walked out of that draft class with Emmanuel Pregnon at pick 56, I'd be like, woo, let's go. Like, that's a great situation because people were talking about him sneaking into the end of the first round going into the draft.
Yeah.
And if you were to tell me, hey, all right, then they got Albert Regis at pick 81 and Nate Borkacher at pick 88. I'm looking at that draft class like, all right, that's not bad. That's you're getting more physical. You're getting better in the trenches. I can see the vision, blah, blah, blah. But you switch the order up and everybody loses their mind. And it's the same 3 guys.
Exactly.
So that's where I'm kind of landing with the draft class. I like the players, and I mean, if you want to be specific, I love the idea of Emmanuel Pregnon because if he being so physical, so dominant in the run game, I think that he's going to compete with Patrick McCarry at right guard and truly be able to give the Jaguars an opportunity to run more man gap because they ran almost, let's say, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I remember Travis Etienne was closer to a 50-50 split, where Bashaw Tootin was closer to 70% zone. So when I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I know they brought in Chris Rodriguez, he's a downhill type of guy.
Yeah.
You want to be able to do more of that, but you need some security on that right guard spot where Patrick McCarry was dealing with a lot of injuries last year. So that makes me feel a little bit more confident on that interior O-line.
Yeah.
Just that selection in and of itself. Then you get Nate Borkacher and Tanner Kozel, 2 tight ends. You can run more 12. You can run more 13 personnel. You have an offensive head coach. He's going to want to do his things like the Sean McVay guys and like the Jaguars played against the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams in weeks 6 and 7 of the season. And they destroyed Jacksonville in both games, running mostly 12 and 13 personnel in both of those games in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
From that point on last year, I said Jacksonville is going to invest in tight end next year because they tried to do the same thing late in the season and they struggled doing it.
Yeah.
It was a known that not that he's necessarily going to follow Sean McVay, because I don't think it was necessarily that. It was just kind of one of those things. This is the same tree the teacher just taught you in person.
Yeah.
How to destroy your defense doing this thing. Yeah,
and you see the evolution. I mean, it's the evolution of the offensive structure in the NFL as well. That's what we're seeing.
Defenses are getting lighter. You got these strong safeties that's 220, and the biggest thing that's keeping the tight ends off of those guys is the fact that, well, you have these. If you have a dominant defensive line, it's your only prayer of keeping those guys clean. Because if you can get a tight end who's actually good at blocking on your 220 safety, you're going to be running for years. You're going to be running for days. So
Yeah.
that's been the whole chess match between the offensive coordinators and in this case, the head coach who calls plays and the defensive coordinators. So now the offenses are yinning when the defenses are yanging, and we're going to keep going back and forth and seeing what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it is. It's going to be fascinating to see how these new tight ends are integrated into this offense this coming season. And again, folks, we are talking to Travis Holmes here from Big Cat Country. As I hit my microphone there, I'm a professional, as you all know. We are going to be taking a break here. And when we get back, we're going to dive into more Jags talk, specifically some strengths and weaknesses of the team, but also where Trevor Lawrence is at and what young players could really become a national face and star. Stick with us. We're going to be right back. All right, we are back with our good buddy Travis Holmes from BigCatCountry.com. Travis, before we went to break, I forgot to ask where everybody can find you out there on the interwebs. I know if you're watching on YouTube at Travis D. Holmes on the Twitter/X, but if there's any other promos you want to get out, let folks know where they can connect with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's BigCatCountry.com. We're always going to tell you, promote local journalism. Don't get your news from the aggregate accounts or the national media who they're just taking our information and repackaging it.
I love it.
Talk to people who are local on the ground. BigCatCountry.com for all of my written material with the team, Gus Lowe, Dylan, SI, all of those guys, but also the Duval Dive podcast with myself and Kyle, the student of the game, Nash, where we talk about everything Jacksonville Jaguars related. Talk about more of the rumors that we don't really get into on the media side, and kind of just chop it up with the fans and kind of talk about what they want to talk about a little bit more.
Fun stuff.
A little bit more fun. Yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. And we have 3 pods a week there at minimum.
Nice.
So yeah, Travis D. on all the socials, and you pretty much called it out. So
there you go. There you go. Yeah, we always want to talk fun stuff on our podcast for sure. And I got to tell you, what was really fun this past season was watching Trevor Lawrence having a really nice year. Obviously, the team wants him to build upon that. A 2-part question here for you, Travis. Has Trevor Lawrence really entered that next tier of possible and potential elite status where we can kind of put him in the same category as Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? That's first. And then the follow-up with that is what type of development? What's the next step in his development, whether it's, fewer turnovers, enhanced leadership that you're hoping to see from Trevor Lawrence here. So let's go with the first one here. Where has he entered that elite status possibly at this point?
If you were to ask the rest of the Jacksonville Jaguars fan base if he's entered that status, they will tell you undoubtedly yes.
Okay.
If you were to ask me, who is a full, entire life Jacksonville Jaguars fan, covering the team in the media side for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
A little bit of that Duval County PTSD, we'll call it.
Oh, okay.
Still built into the memory bank. Yeah. And I remember 2022, the 2023 injured season, the up and down, great 7-game sample sizes up, and then
it's a roller coaster.
Because Pepperidge Farm remembers, it is really interesting to trying to say, I'm guaranteeing that I think he's there. I think he's shown the promise. Absolutely.
Okay.
But is he there? I would need to see it for at minimum a full season, like start to finish, to truly land there. I see a great coach who puts him in a great position. I see a quarterback who went throughout an entire offseason unable to throw the ball because he was coming back from surgery and still learning a new NFL offense. I see a Jacksonville Jaguars team who has yet to make the playoffs 2 years straight, going back to 1999. I see all these things packaged up, and I see a quarterback who I think I believe in, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm okay saying I'm still walking that line for him to prove it to me.
Absolutely,
on the field. So I don't think he's in that elite tier yet, because when you are in that elite tier, I feel like there's one part of the game that they're still not on the same page on, and I'm not going to say that's necessarily a Trevor Lawrence issue, but I am going to say it's involving Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback, and that's the deep ball. Josh Allen, they give you those deep balls. Patrick Mahomes, he's good, but he at least is giving those guys those opportunities. You're going to get pass interferences. You're going to do like you're going to
absolutely
make the right. You're going
yes.
to put those plays up in the air and give those guys an opportunity. I think that's the one area where Trevor Lawrence is still not giving me exactly what I want to see from him as far as that's concerned. And I'm not talking 20 yards down the field. I'm talking 30 plus yards, those kinds of hero balls if you're in the fantasy football community.
Yeah.
That's the only piece that I'm looking for. And you could also attribute some of that to Brian Thomas Jr. struggles in this 2025 season. So I'm okay acknowledging that. But I just want to point out to the fan base, like, hey, when we see the Jaguars play against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs and they shade of safety to Brian Thomas Jr.'s side and they don't even try to go deep on these guys.
Yeah.
You have to attack them and make them come out of that too high shell look. If you have those few opportunities, you have to at least give it a shot. If you're not, I'm looking at the quarterback like, that's one of those things elite quarterbacks don't miss. And that's where I want to see that maturation.
There you go. That's the next step in Trevor Lawrence's development right there, folks. And I guess, we can now move into the part of the conversation and another two-part question. We're going to start off with, after dissecting this offseason thus far, what the Jags front office has done, along with the coaching staff, let's talk about the strengths and the weaknesses. What is the biggest strength on this team heading into this coming season here, Travis?
I mean, it was the biggest strength last year, and I don't think it's even arguable to anybody who watched the Jacksonville Jaguars games. They ended the season first in the league in stopping the run on defense. And folks, even the Buffalo Bills media and fans were talking about it the week of the playoffs. Like, well, they're overrated. They didn't play anybody. They played this team. They played Jonathan Taylor, but the quarterback got hurt in the first game, and then they leave that Buffalo Bills game like, oh, they're good. yeah, they're good.
Very good.
They are
very good.
They are that good. We didn't. Yeah, I forget what Buffalo ended with that game rushing, but it wasn't great. They won despite not being able to run the ball and being this elite run team.
Yes.
So that's where the Jaguars are going to be. Their biggest strength is stopping the run, and all they did was add to that by bringing in Albert Regis, whose strength is again stopping the run. And even in losing their middle linebacker Devin Lloyd, that wasn't his strength. His strength was not in stopping the run. His strength was actually in the passing game. I don't see them taking a step back there. It's just going to be, maybe they're not a top team in the league. Maybe they're top 3 in the league. Okay, cool.
Which is fantastic. Absolutely. Nobody's complaining about that. Yeah.
The biggest question is probably attributing to towards that biggest weakness is still the
let's do biggest weakness. Yeah.
Whether or not you're going to be able to get some interior pass rush, because that really comes down to your defensive tackle play. Eric Armstead, who was the vast majority of your pass rush, your interior pass rush in the 2025 season, falls off a cliff after week 6, after his injury. And from that point on, he basically disappeared as far as his pressure rate, as far as his sacks. Like, I think he had a half sack the rest of the season after being top 3 in the league in sacks for the defensive tackles early on. So it was like, oh man, you can't have, 2 top 15 paid defensive ends. And they're generally fine as far as their production, as far as looking at the pressures and everything else, but they just can't they're just running the loop over and over and over. And the quarterback is stepping up in the pocket. Devon Hamilton is a run stopper, which helps for that number 1 ranked run stopping defense, but he doesn't give you much of anything rushing the passer. So what do you do when Eric Armstead falls off a cliff? Devon Hamilton, your other defensive tackle, doesn't give you much. You're stuck. So that's their biggest weakness. And unfortunately, they didn't bring in a prototypical, pass rusher or designated pass rushing option, that 3 technique. So you're kind of figuring out, do they believe in, Albert Regis to be the guy he didn't show himself to be in college? Are you just leaning on the traits there? I don't know what the plan is there, but that's the concern, at least for Anthony Campanelli's defense.
Campanelli's defense is absolutely going to need to get that aspect of this team figured out for sure. But Travis, man, before I let you go here, and a great conversation that we're having here, I wish I could talk to you for another hour here, but as we're closing things out here, as we're looking to this upcoming season and what the Jaguars are going to do on the field, aside from Trevor Lawrence, which young player do you think could really become a national face and star of this team? What are you thinking here?
This feels like such a cheating question, man. We have Trevor Lawrence on the team, and
aside from him,
of course,
aside
but,
from
well,
him.
of course, but no. But the cheating part of this is because they have Travis Hunter on the team, the
Right.
first generational two-way player
Right.
in the modern NFL. And you're like, well, duh. That's obviously the answer. He's probably going to be one of your favorites for comeback player of the year if you're not talking about a quarterback of some sort.
Right.
So, yeah, it's freaking Travis Hunter, but he's probably already a national face and star. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
Especially if you have kids and who are on TikTok or on YouTube. Come on, like this dude's already national. So if I'm not cheating and saying the guy who plays on both sides of the ball, who loves the fish and has an immense TikTok following, then you're probably saying someone like, whew, you know what? Actually, I almost said something that I don't know that I necessarily believe. This is going to get interesting though.
Oh, okay.
Because the Jaguars are in a weird spot. They are. Like most of the high profile positions that you name, quarterback. Well, that's Trevor Lawrence. He's already.
Yes.
They're good there. The high visibility positions, wide receiver. You got Brian Thomas Jr., but I don't think that's a question mark right now based on what you saw in that 2025 season and whether he's going to be able to play more, run more option routes and actually catch the ball and not be uneasy running across the middle. All those things that happened on film last year.
Right.
So I don't know if that's actually going to be true. You got the running back position, maybe Brayshaw Tootin. The fantasy football community loves him. And I have my personal biases, my personal opinion that they're going to have a lot of split backfield duties, like 1A, 1B with him and Chris Rodriguez, who I think is going to truly be your first down, maybe even first and second down running back, which limits the ceiling for Brayshaw Tootin. And on the defensive side of things, your pass rushers are, for the most part, a little bit older. You got Trevon Walker, who's now on his second contract. You got Josh Hines-Allen, who's in the middle of his second contract. These aren't young guys. Where am I naming someone that's like, again, it comes back to, if it's not Travis Hunter, this is a weird situation where I don't know who there really is that can just be that guy as far as a young national face.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else is either on their second contract or they're simply guys who aren't playing high profile positions.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's my long-winded way of saying the guy that was a national face when they drafted him is probably going to be the national face because he's coming back from injury. Travis Hunter, fishing master. Yes.
There we go. Travis Hunter can be a national star, and it just should be here. We're going to actually change this here to say that Travis Hunter actually is a national star. I mean, of course he is. Why wouldn't he be at this point in his career with what he has done and what he will do in the future? I think for me, that draft and all the talk of cornerback percentage on the field between the offense, defense, it was really remarkable to be living through that, because we're not going to really see this. Seriously, maybe once every 15 years. Who knows? We may never see this again. And I think it's fascinating to see a talent like Travis Hunter doing what he's doing. I honestly think he should be getting more acclaim for the type of athlete that he is and the type of football player that he is, given what he's done for the game in his very young career so far. So I love your answer. Travis Hunter not only is a national star, he's going to be that face, I think, for the team for some years to come.
The only thing I'm going to keep an eye out on, like in training camp and early in the season, is with him returning from injury. Not if he's going to be as athletic as we expect him to be. I do expect him to be as athletic as we all see, as explosive as we're all used to seeing. My only thing is he's coming back from an LCL injury where he's not going to be playing much of the early parts of the offseason. And I still question, like, are you going to have the endurance? Are you going to be able to have the windpipes and everything else to play both sides like we were used to seeing you play? That's a different thing from saying I'm going to be in football shape to I'm going to get in Ironman football shape. Something that we already thought was very difficult for anyone to do. And now you're coming back from a moderately big injury. Like that changes the math a little bit for me.
It does. Absolutely. Man, what a great conversation here, folks. He is Travis Holmes from BigCatCountry.com. If you're on the Twitter/X, follow him. Great follow at Travis D. Holmes. And again, head on over to BigCatCountry.com and check out all they have going on over there. My friend, it was really great talking to you. I'm hoping you can come on and join us again, get into some Jags talk, some NFL talk. I'd love to have you back on the show, man.
Man, I appreciate it. No, thank you very much. And again, I'm always willing to come back on. Just let me know whenever, Jeff. I'm here for it. And I'm looking forward to you guys having a great season in
Oh,
all, in 16 of the 17 games. How about that?
I love that. Great way to end this. Thank you, my friend.